Hello and welcome to this tutorial that will show you an expanded method for subtraction. This may well be your first foray into borrowing if you find that the top number doesn't have enough units or enough tens, etc., and should follow on from you being able to subtract on a number line and subtract separate numbers. So let's see how this works. Here we've got a setup for a subtraction. 738 take away 465. Now to the right of that you can see that there are columns for hundreds, tens and units, and we're going to partition both of the numbers into the hundreds and the tens and the units. So the 738 becomes 730 and 8, and the 465 becomes 460 and 5. Now what we should do is look at each of the columns and see where the bottom number is greater than the top number, because if that's the case then we'll need to borrow. And we can see that it's in the tens. The 60 is greater than the 30. Now what I'd tell my kids to do is to draw an angry face that reminds them that it's there that we need to borrow. But we can take 5 away from the 8 in the units fairly easily. That will leave us with 3. Now borrowing, because we've not got enough tens in the 738, we need to borrow from the hundreds. So to do that, we cross the 700 out and replace it with a 600. The extra 100 goes over to the 30, making 130 in the tens column. Now I can take that 60 away from 130, which will leave me with 70. And then it's quite straightforward to subtract the 400 from the 600. I'll be left with 200. All I then need to do is add the three parts of the answer together to get my final answer of 273. If you wish, you may pause the video now to have a go at this on your own, or keep listening to see how we do it. 8,284 subtract 6,517. We begin by partitioning. 8,284, 6,500, the 10 and the 7 for the 17. Now, we'll do what we did before, put a horrible looking face above any columns that have got more in the bottom number than in the top. There are more units in the bottom column, so we'll put a horrible face there. There are more hundreds in the bottom column, so we'll put a horrible face there. We're going to need to do 2 borrowings. So we'll borrow from the tens so that we can make the units greater and easier to subtract. 80 can become 70, and the 10 can be added to the 4 to make 14. 7 from 14 will leave me with 7. I can take 10 away from 70, which will leave me with 60. We're halfway there. Now we can't take 500 from the 200, so we need to borrow 1,000. I cross out the 8,000, and replace it with 7,000, and that extra 1,000 can be added to the 200, so I've got 1,200. I can then take the 500 from the 1,200, which would leave me with 700, and then it's a straightforward case of subtracting the 6,000 from the 7,000, which would leave me with 1,000. All I then need to do is bolt the answer together to give me my final total of 1,767. Now it's your turn. Pause this video now to have a go at answering these 3 subtractions. The first partitioning has been done for you, and I urge you to partition the other numbers so you have a better chance of getting it right. Best of luck. Here are your answers. 571 subtract 246 is 325. Just 1 borrowings from the tens to the units so that we can subtract the 6. 818 subtract 235 is 583. The tens needed something to be borrowed, so we had to borrow from the hundreds. So the 10 becomes 110, and we can subtract 30 from that to make 80. 2,143 subtract 1,526. Well, the units needed to be added to, so we had to borrow from the tens. So the 40 becomes a 30, and then you can subtract 6 from the 13, leaving you with 7 units. In the hundreds, you couldn't take 500 from 100, so 1,000 had to be borrowed. You're left with 1,000 in the thousands column, and you've got 1,100 in the hundreds column. You take 500 away from that, you'll have 600, and the final answer will be 617. If you've got through that without any problems, well done indeed. If not, come and see me and I'm sure I'll be able to help you out. Well done.